Alright, welcome back and thanks for tuning in again. So today we're going to take a look at this 45 kW generator set that I picked up back in the summertime. It's powered by an inline 6 Perkins 6.354 engine, and it's driving a 45 kilowatt Lima generator end. The package was put together by the Empire Generator Company, or Empire Electric Plant Company, which I've never really seen one of their generators before. This unit does have a couple problems, which we're going to go into today, and my ultimate goal is to get the engine running right and do a control upgrade on the generator, kind of modernize it a little bit. So let's take a walk around the thing and we'll go from there. Let's take a walk around this unit. First off, we got a Perkins 6.354 engine. There's the serial number there. Got a Lucas CAV injection pump on it. Looks like its last PM was a little while ago. You might be able to hear I got the block heater cooking away. It's a bit cold out today. Hasn't been run today. It's starting to warm up. Let's take a look at the nameplate for the generator. Empire Electric Plants. I think I said it's 45 kW, 3-phase. Right now it's connected for 12240, which is a Delta connection. 1800 RPM. I can't say I've ever seen an Empire branded gen set before. Got an old style control panel on here. It is somewhat electronic. It's got an electronic voltage regulator here. This is an Empire special, so they built their own voltage regulator for it. Looks like they built their own overspeed shutdown board as well. My plan is to completely remove this control panel and put a modern fully electronic panel with a digital display for voltage, current, oil pressure, water temperature, all that stuff. Kind of eliminate all of this. It does operate. The voltmeter doesn't work, or the voltmeter's not accurate. The amp meter doesn't work at all. The hour meter works and the frequency meter works, but it's probably about time for this all to be upgraded. The wiring is a little crusty. Like I said, it does still work, but my plan is to sell this gen set. I don't really have any intention of keeping it. So in order for it to be marketable, it needs a control upgrade. But the engine has issues, which we're going to get into. I got a load bank set up. We're going to load test it, and we'll go into that in a little bit. But yeah, it doesn't like to take load. So the governor in the injection pump has excessive droop, and I feel like the engine is misfiring, which you'll be able to hear that and see that once we get it running. Let me put some hearing protection in, and we'll get right to it. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing fired up. Give it a little bit of time to warm up. I'll talk about a couple of the other issues this thing has. When I first inspected it, looked it over, I noticed the oil level was very high, and the oil smelled strongly of fuel. So we've got fuel entering the crankcase by some means. I believe it's mostly due to the mechanical fuel lift pump, or the transfer pump, that's on the opposite side of the engine. I can see an external leak, which leads me to believe that the diaphragm is faulty or cracked, weeping fuel through it, and that's the main cause of our fuel in the crankcase. So I did drop the old oil out of it and filled it up with some fresh stuff. Just kept the old filter on there just for this load test. I don't want to run it with heavily diluted oil. We also have an external fuel leak over by the injection pump. Let me zoom in on it here. You'll note there's a soup can hanging right below the back of the injection pump there. And you might be able to see that little disc behind the pump. I'm going to try to stabilize this for you. I believe that is a pulse dampener, or damper, to smooth out the fuel pressure within that pump. That is actually leaking. It drips fuel continuously while the engine's running. My real concern with this is that we have some kind of internal engine problem, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we have a totally fuel supply system related problem between the governor and the injection pump, the governor action not working correctly, and of course the external fuel leaks. Chances are one or more of the injectors are not spraying like they should. We'll get into that a little bit later. I want to pull those injectors out, do a pop test on them, and maybe a compression test on the engine. Got a little bit of blue smoke here, still warming up. Let's go over to the load bank. So with no load, we're at about 61.5 hertz, we'll call it. You'll notice the voltage bouncing around quite a bit. Look at that, 256, 254. That's my second issue with this unit. That Empire brand voltage regulator does not seem to be doing its job all that well. You got a little bit of flutter in that voltage at no load and at load. And there's no stability adjustment on that regulator either. It's only voltage level. Chances are that could be repaired, probably just some dried out capacitors in it, but I think it's time for an upgrade nonetheless. That frequency droop. So we're at 61.5. We'll put 20 kilowatts on it. Yeah, we're already down to, well, below 59.5. So we dropped 2 cycles, 2 hertz, with not even, almost 50% load. smooth, even sound that a diesel should have. Let's give it a few more minutes and I'll increase the load. And I'm going to put you on the tripod so it's nice and steady. You can see the shudder that the engine has. See, we got a little crankcase blow by as well. You see it there? Just a little whiff right now. I'm going to set the tripod up and increase the load. Okay, I've got you set up looking down the length of the engine. I really don't know if the camera's going to be able to pick this up. Right now we're at 22 kilowatts worth of load. I'm going to drop that load off. And then I'm going to reapply it. Can you see that shudder that the engine has? Let me increase the load. Now we're at 32 or 33 kilowatts. Frequency is down to 58.5. I'm going to drop that load. Back up to almost 62 hertz. Let's put that 30 kilowatt back on it. Yep, back down to 58 and a half. I'm going to walk over close to the engine and we'll see if you can get an idea how it sounds. Make it unhappy. Let's put all 45 kilowatts on it. Alright, we are at 44 and a half or so. 44. Frequency is down to 57.8. Hear that miss in the engine. down to 22 kilowatt. I'm going to go grab I think I'm going to need a 1/4 inch wrench so that I can turn the fuel up on the injection pump when we're under heavy load, just to see if the engine has the horsepower to maintain 60 hertz at that load. We'll be back in a sec. It's actually a 5/16 wrench I need. So we are still at 22 kilowatts. I don't know if you can read that meter, but we are at 59.5 hertz. Acceptable for a 50-year-old Onan, but not with this thing. Not if we want to make this generator useful for the current day. We need better governor response than that. So what are we at? We're at, wow, 65 hertz, pretty near. We'll call it 65 hertz. Let's put full load back on it. Yeah, full load brings it back down to 60.4, 60.5. So that's 4.5 to 5 hertz droop. That's unacceptable. Well, so it seems like the engine does have the power to maintain an acceptable RPM, but we got a really lazy governor inside that injection pump. I'm not entirely familiar with these Lucas pumps. I don't know if there's any external governor sensitivity adjustment or not. I'm going to have to dig into a manual and do some reading about it. I still want to pull these injectors, check those, because I think that's going to be the root of our miss or our engine vibration there. I should mention that I already did adjust the valves. The first time I ran this unit with load, and I noticed this hesitation, slash misfire. Checked those valves, and turns out they did not have, they hardly had any clearance at all. So reset those, really no change. So let's go ahead, we'll let it cool down, pop those injectors out, and we'll do a compression test on it. Alright, well, at this point we got the injector nozzles pulled out, and I've cleaned the bores. Got quite a powerful sunlight coming from this direction, so you're probably not seeing anything here. It's pretty clean down there. So, got the compression gauge installed on number 1 cylinder. But let's take a quick look at these injector nozzles. This is number 1. I've kind of wiped it down. Doesn't look that bad, but they all came out looking like this. You see the buildup on the tips there? So that indicates that we had a lot of running under light load conditions. A lot of carbon buildup, a lot of soot. Unfortunately, I do not have the correct fuel line adapter for my pop tester, so I can't pop test these injectors. So I think I'll drop them off at the one of the local diesel shops this week that I deal with, and have them test them and give me a recommendation, see if those nozzles need to be replaced. But in the meantime, let's get this compression test out of the way. We got it hooked up. I just got a starter button there on the starter motor, so we can crank it over. Crank it over 10 compression strokes for each cylinder, and we'll see what we get. I'll try to angle you here. Actually, that's not a bad angle now, is it? That should be fine. And I also have a battery charger on the battery, just to keep it topped up, so we get about the same cranking speed for each cylinder. So got number 1 here. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Comes in right about 360. Okay. 360 on number 1. I don't know if there's a listed spec for this engine. There might be one out there somewhere. Really, I'm just comparing cylinders to see if we got 1 or 2 that are a bit low. It might be causing that, I don't want to say hesitation, but that shudder that the engine has, that kind of unstable running. Set this down. I actually had to modify this compression test adapter slightly, just the hold down, to clear these head bolts that are right next to the injector studs there. Just have to mill away a little material there. Make sure that's clean. And I got a copper O-ring on, copper washer on the end here, just held on with some grease. Make sure we don't have any rust or particulate on the bottom there that's going to cause us to have a bad seal. Okay, Okay, let's see what number 2 has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2 comes in at 340. Okay. Get that rag up here so it doesn't get sucked into the fan. All right, let's give number 3 a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 355. So far, seems so good. And pretty common for generators and standby applications to be lightly loaded and do a lot of no load running for testing. That's what this was. This was a standby generator at a pump station, a freshwater pumping station, not a sewer pump station. So it's just a booster station. And the town was doing a lot of upgrades, which included replacing the couple generators they had at the sewer pump stations and the freshwater pump stations. Probably why it's got this nice blue color to it. Okay, let's try number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Don't tell me this got plugged up. We only hit 300, but it didn't seem like it wasn't bouncing like all the other ones. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 330. I've had trouble in the past with this particular gauge. If there's any kind of loose carbon or anything in the cylinder, sometimes it gets stuck in this check valve that's up top here. Let's try one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 330 again. We'll do it one more time, just to make sure we got a good, accurate reading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, 330. Matter of fact, the last engine I used this on, I had an issue with that. You take these injectors out, and especially when they look like that, a lot of loose carbon on the tip kind of dislodges it. It's just floating around the cylinder there, and it can either get lodged up underneath of a valve seat, or get shoved up into the test adapter. There's actually two check valves. There's one in the tip here, and then there's one in this fitting. Alright, that was number 4. Let's check number 5. A lot of times a good hard load bank will help clear out that carbon, but you got to watch, because if you have an injector that's not spraying correctly, either because of that carbon or for some other reason, you can really do some damage. Alright, let's check 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 365. So we're seeing a bit of variation here. I don't know if I'm concerned about it yet, though. So far, the minimum we've had is 330, the max is 365. We know valve clearances are good. We could do the oil test. That would definitely drive the compression up, either way. All right, last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a 365 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that's an honest 365. So our low ones were 4 at 330 and 2 at 340. Number 1 was 360, number 3 was 355, number 5 and 6 were 365. Let's go back and try number 4 again. Make sure we get that same reading. If we don't get that same reading, well, we know something was either sitting under a valve, or maybe the gauge wasn't sealing correctly. Still clean. Yeah. So what I'm doing here when I'm wiggling this around is I'm just trying to make sure that the test adapter, the bracket, is not hitting like the boss for this bolt here or the valve cover. I'm trying to make sure that when I tighten it down, it's bearing down on that copper seal, that copper washer. 330 on number 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 345. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Pretty near 350. Almost 350. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's an honest 350. Okay, so it's more likely it's closer to 350. Probably had a little bit of carbon under a valve. 350. Okay. Let's try 2. Let's go back to 2. That was at 340. Wrench is trying to get away from me. Boy, if they'd all be about 350 and above, 350 to 365, that sounds pretty healthy to me. Let's go back and try 2 again. 340. I mean, the engine is cold. We haven't run it since yesterday. I doubt that, well, it could be we're slinging a little bit of oil up on the cylinder walls, doing all this cranking. Getting a little bit of extra oil on them rings. Okay, number 2 was it? Yep. Let's go back to that one. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's just under 350, 345. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it's just touching 350. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's an honest 350. Okay, we'll go with that. Sounds better. 350. So we got 15 pounds worth of variation from 350 to 365. That's pretty good. Well, that gives me a bit more confidence. At least to be able to proceed with it as far as putting money into it. Go get those injectors tested, cleaned. I've actually already ordered the seal kit for the pump and a lift pump for it as well. So hopefully next week or the following week we'll get to tearing into that, and hopefully I got my injectors back by that time. If I drop them off tomorrow, we'll have to see how backed up they are. But I think that's about a wrap for this video. And once we get this engine running sweet, then we can concentrate on the control end and the generator end. So thanks for watching.